Well, good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining us for this Try This at Work episode. And we are going to be continuing our series on mobile productivity. Specifically, we're going to dive deep into both Excel on your mobile device and OneDrive for Business on your mobile device. So before we get started, I want to just lay some groundwork very quickly around all of the work that Microsoft has been doing to make sure that you have amazing productivity experiences on your device of choice. So whatever you have in your pocket, in a bag, under your arm, or under a desk, we expect you to have an amazing experience, and we're going to showcase some of that for you today. But this is just an example of some of the native applications that Microsoft is providing now for iOS and Android, tablets, phones, Mac OS, PC, obviously, and browser. So the idea is anywhere, any device, anytime, access to all of your productivity experiences. And so if you look, we even added some new ones recently. We went over this in last week's episode, but you'll see we now have a Visio experience on your mobile device. We have a secure browser experience. We also have Power Apps and Flow. We have the To-Do app, Planner, so you can manage all your tasks that you're working on with a group of people. We have the Teams app, and then we also have the Edge browser. And so it's just kind of eye-opening when people think of Microsoft and they may have a perception of how we were years and years ago. It's amazing to see the investments we now make across all platforms and ensuring that you have an amazing productivity experience no matter what device you've invested in. And so this next thing is I just want to do a little awareness campaign here because a lot of people show up to work every day. They're used to buying Office perhaps off the shelf at Best Buy, and there's some great value you get being an employee of a company who has purchased Microsoft 365 or Office 365 for you. And so one of the things that a lot of employees get really excited about is the fact that you actually can install Office, that's the Word, Excel, PowerPoint, OneNote, Outlook, all of those things on 5 computers, as well as 5 tablets, and then finally 5 mobile phones. So I honestly have never met anyone who's come to me and said, Brent, I've run out of the licenses to install Office on the devices that I want. So if you know somebody who has more than this, then perhaps we'll look at increasing that one day. But we feel like this is a really safe bet to allow you to have Office installed on the device that your company invests in for you as an asset that they hand you as an employee, but also now to be able to leverage Office on your home machines and your tablets and your phones. So I'm going to hand this over to my good friend and colleague, Connor Shank, who is a peer of mine, and he's also a productivity specialist, and he's going to dive in and show us some of the amazing capabilities of Excel and OneDrive from a mobile perspective. So Connor, over to you.
Hey, thanks, Brent. You can hear me okay?
I hear you just fine.
Awesome. All right, so the first thing that we are going to do before we dive in is I'm going to actually guide us through the installation process. So if you want to pull out your mobile phone and follow along with me, I'll just go to the App Store. And if you'll notice, I am using an iPhone and I have an iPad as well. If you were with us last week, you know that Brent used an Android device, and one of the great things about these mobile apps is that the experience is virtually identical regardless of the platform that you choose. So we're just switching it up today and using an iOS device, but what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and type in Microsoft in the search of the App Store. And I invite you to look through all of the apps, as Brent said, and download at your leisure. But there's a couple that I'd like to draw your attention to, and those are OneDrive for Business, which says Microsoft OneDrive here. Actually, just OneDrive because it brings in both OneDrive for Business and OneDrive Personal, as well as Microsoft Excel. So if you can install both of those by clicking there, you can see I've actually already installed them. But once you do install it, you will be guided to a screen that looks like this. And so I'll go ahead and open up Excel. And it's going to say, let's get started. And so I'm going to log in. Now, since I've logged into other applications, it's got my credentials cached. But right here, you would actually get you'd get a login screen where you would type in your username and or your email address as well as your password. If that's a corporate credential, then it will recognize that as well as if it's just a personal Office 365 account, it'll recognize that as well. So now we're going to, once you get through there, you're going to click on Create Documents, and now we are going to be into Excel. If you can do the same thing for OneDrive for Business, that would be great, because we're actually going to start our journey today in OneDrive for Business. So, and I know we do have two screens up, as you can see. We will be navigating between both of them, but for now we're going to stick with the iPhone. Microsoft is very committed to empowering users like yourself to do your best work wherever your best work gets done, and we understand that it's not always a convenient time, during the 8 to 5 business hours when you're at your desk and you have your computer in front of you. We understand that sometimes getting work done means standing in line waiting to board an airplane, or in the back of a taxi cab. Or potentially it's at one of your son or daughter's sporting events and duty calls, and you have to log in. And so it's inconvenient times like that where we are at times called upon to take care of work functions. And so the mobile apps for the Office 365 platform allow us to remain productive even when the conditions aren't ideal. And that really, the foundation of this, in my opinion, and the one that I'm most excited about, is OneDrive for Business. OneDrive for Business, the concept is anytime access to all your files on any device. And so all of the files that we will see as we cruise through here, these are on all of my laptop and desktop computers. They're also on all of my mobile devices, as I can open them up on my iPad here as well. And you can see there's same files in the same hierarchy. Now, why would this really matter? Well, I mean, it can matter for a number of different reasons. Some of the ones that we've already alluded to, or in the event that maybe I spill a hot cup of coffee all over my computer one morning and my computer gets fried. Well, if I was not saving to a network drive or didn't have some sort of backup, that would be a catastrophic event for me, because I would lose all of the files that I had stored. But because I store everything in OneDrive for Business rather than on my local machine, I'm able to get a new computer. I can go to OneDrive for Business and I can download and sync my files to that new machine as well. This actually happened to me on a recent business trip where I was traveling to another Microsoft office, and I actually left my computer in the rental car. And so I just went to our local IT guy. I got a demo computer, or a loaner computer for the day. I was able to log into OneDrive for Business, pull all my files down. All of my presentations went off without a hitch. When I was done, I wiped all the files off of it and gave the loaner machine back. So that's a real world example of how we understand that sometimes life happens and things are inconvenient. And so how does Microsoft empower people to achieve more? It's by providing a solution for them in the times when things kind of go wrong, or when things are not in the most conducive environment. So as you can see here on my iPhone, on the right-hand side, you'll see all of my files. Now, it looks similar to the File Explorer if you're using a Windows 10 device, where I have folders up top. This is how I've sorted it. And then I have individual files down below. Actually, before I get into the files, let's take a quick tour of the application. So as you can see, on the very bottom, we have a couple of different options for places that we can navigate to. So this is the Files section. I'll go ahead and click on Recent as well. And these are files that I have interacted with on a recent basis. And this could be on my mobile phone. It could be on one of my other devices as well. And so this gives me a quick view. And if I know there's something that I was working on that I want to get back to very quickly, I can. I can also come over here to my shared files. Now what this does is anytime a colleague of mine shares a file with me, or a folder through OneDrive for Business, it actually shows up here, and this can simplify finding content that folks share with me. So for example, I'm sure some of you may have experienced something very similar to this, and that is that somebody sends me an email and they've got an attachment, and that attachment is very important. And so, I'm looking through it. I say, okay, great, but the timing is just not right, and I'm not needing to. Sorry, I got a couple devices shutting off here. I'm not able to take a look at that particular file at that particular time. So I say, hey, I'll get back to this, and then what do you know, 2 or 3 weeks later is when I finally get around to it. And so I go to my inbox, I type in from, and then I type in the person's name. So let's say Brent Witchell, and I search through all of the emails that Brent Witchell has sent me, and I'm just looking for a little paperclip right next to that email. Once I find one with a paperclip from Brent Witchell, I then open it and I say, aha, I found it. Only to find out that that was actually a different file that he sent me, and so I have to go back and I have to keep searching through messages that have a little paperclip next to it until I find the right file. Transversely, I can come into OneDrive for Business because that's how Brent Witchell usually likes to share files, and I can just come in here to my shared, and I can see that these are files that somebody has shared with me, and it just eliminates the need for going through countless messages and finding things. I know, hey, somebody shared something with me, and so there's actually a threat protection all up presentation that I can see here because Cameron just shared this with me. So so that's a great capability. We can also discover, and what this is discovering content that folks have shared with me at some point in time that perhaps I've lost sight of. Maybe they shared it with me recently, maybe they shared it a while ago, but I can actually search here similar to as if I was scrolling through social media, and I can see files that people have shared with me or given me access to based on a distribution group that I'm a part of, and it's a great way of discovering content. Now, we also have sites. SharePoint Online and OneDrive for Business are built on very similar or the same architecture, and so there's a seamless integration that we have with the OneDrive for Business app. These are the SharePoint sites that I frequent, and what you'll notice is I can actually open up, let's go into one of these. I'll go ahead and go to Microsoft 365 Security Experts, and it's going to give me a preview, right? So this is going to show me the documents that are stored in this SharePoint team site. But I can also open this site, and it's actually going to open the SharePoint mobile app if you have this one as well. And this is going to give me the full app experience, right? And so I'm going to have all of the capabilities in the SharePoint Online application right here on my phone. And I can quickly navigate right back to the OneDrive for Business app. So we're not going to have time to take a look into the SharePoint Online app, which I believe one of our colleagues will be covering in a week or so. So stay tuned for that one. Make sure to visit us again. But certainly very, very handy to have quick access to that. And then lastly, we have this pane called Me, and this is kind of a management pane where you can control your different accounts. You can see some information around active files, and then there's some settings. One thing I would like to note here is this is actually where I'd like you to take a screenshot to be entered for the fabulous Wobo wallet that Brent alluded to earlier. They're fantastic. I would highly encourage you to enter your name in for that drawing. But as you can see up on the top, I have a couple of accounts. I've got some personal accounts, some demo accounts, and one called Microsoft. When you log in, you will see your name and your email address will be up here as you see as mine. If you could take a screenshot of this and then include that in the email that you send to Brent to be entered into that drawing. Below the names, you'll see this active files, and it's very interesting because when I click see all, this is just an example. I've got a couple of files that have been used recently, right? A couple of demo files. And one of them has 21 views. Now this is very interesting because I shared this with someone recently, and it's been getting some traction. It's been getting some views. People have been logging into it, and so that can be just kind of a neat way of tracking the impact and how people are interacting with what you're sharing with them. So certainly very interesting. I'd also like to draw your attention to offline files. Now, all of the files that are stored in my OneDrive for Business are not actually stored on my phone. This is a cloud connection that I have to the OneDrive for Business repository or library where all my files are stored. But let's say I'm getting on a plane, and I'm not going to have internet access for a little while. Well, I can still interact with some of my files. So I'm going to come over here to Files, and I will scroll through, and I'll pick a file at random, and I will say this file here. I'm going to select it. Oh, that one looks like is already selected. So let me go to this one right here. Select it, and up in the top there's a little ribbon that appears with a couple of options. One is to share, one is to delete, but that third icon looks like a cloud with an arrow pointing down. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that, and it says preparing for offline use. Now what I will do is I'm going to come back over to this Me pane and click on my offline files. And here I have some files that have stored a local copy onto my phone, which I can access even if I don't have an internet or data connection. So that's really handy, especially when you know in advance that you're not going to be able to access them and such as on a plane, especially if you have an iPad or something like that with a keyboard. It can be really handy. And then the last thing that I'll draw your attention to here, we've got a recycle bin where I can, if I delete something, I can actually recover that file. And then I can also come in here to settings, and the thing that I want to highlight here is the passcode. So I can actually require a passcode for my OneDrive for Business application. So I'm going to type in a hyper secure password that nobody will ever be able to guess. And let me go ahead and close this out. Now let's see what happens. Next time I go into the OneDrive for Business application, it is actually going to prompt me to authenticate or to answer a security response. So I can either do Touch ID, or I can click cancel and I can type in my hyper secure password that nobody will ever guess, and now I am in. So if you do have confidential information in perhaps a personal OneDrive that you don't want people to access, then you can certainly set a passcode there. Just showing how Microsoft is committed to giving us the controls that we desire so that we can manage our content securely. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that passcode off. Now let's look over here at the files again. Now a couple of things that we can do. We can obviously scroll through here and view. We can also create certain files. And so what I can do is I can come to this plus icon and I get some options, right? I can create a folder, I can take a photo, I can create a flow, I can create a Word or a PowerPoint presentation, so I could do that. Once I click one of those, it's actually going to open up the Word mobile application as Brent showed last week. If you weren't in that session, I'd encourage you to go back and watch that one once it shows up on the website. It was a great session. But let's do this just really quickly. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a folder. And I'm going to call this folder Invoices. One of my favorite pastimes is to work on expense reports. I'm sure many of you can agree with me. And so that was sarcastic, by the way. So I've got a folder now called Invoices, and I've got a little invoice from a hotel that I was staying at for a recent trip to Birmingham, and so I'd like to get this into OneDrive for Business so that I can submit this through my expense tool. So I'm going to go ahead and click that plus sign again, and this first option says Scan. So I'm going to click on this, and it's actually going to open up my my camera. And as you can see, as I hover over this document, you can see a little blue box. Now you can see a little bit of my my iPad keyboard. You can see my desk where I'm working at today, but this little blue box seems to hover right around the edges of that document. So I'm going to go ahead and take a picture of that. And what you're going to see is it automatically crops everything off other than just the image. And I'm going to go ahead and click OK. I'm going to give this a name, and I will say Birmingham Invoice. And I'll click Save. So it makes it very easy to save content like this into OneDrive for Business. It limits me having to find a scanner to take a high resolution image. I can actually just do it using my photo, and I don't have to do any cropping because it's already done for me. But let's say that you have an invoice that you have already stored in OneDrive for Business that you just need to move into its appropriate location. So I've got one here. I've got a receipt for a client lunch that I hosted. And so I'm going to come up here. I'm going to highlight it, and I can actually drag and drop. And so now I am scrolling while still holding on to this file. I'm going to hover right over the Invoices folder, and it's actually going to take me into the folder here. And that's where I'm going to drop it. Now what you'll see is it actually moves that invoice or that receipt into this folder. And so it's a great way. You still have a lot of the functionality capability of being able to drag and drop to organize your files as makes sense. So certainly exciting to be able to see. Now what we're going to do is we're actually going to take a look at an Excel file. And so I'm going to be over here on my iPad. And let's come down to, let's find an Excel spreadsheet. Here's one that's pretty good, I think. All right, perfect. So you should be able to see that now. Now what you're actually seeing is a preview. So I'm still within the OneDrive for Business app. And up in the top right-hand corner, you'll see a couple of different options. One of those being the popular Excel or the common Excel icon. I'm going to go ahead and click that, and it's going to open up the Excel application, and here in full fidelity I have access to this spreadsheet. Now I can also do that on my mobile phone. Come in here, and I'll go ahead and open this up while we're talking. So here we go. It's going to open it, and it's going to go ahead and download that on my iPhone as well. So while we're in here, you can see that it looks very similar to the way you might expect your Excel on your desktop to look. Now, I'm certainly not going to try to convince everyone to throw their computers out the window and that they should only use their phone or their iPads or popular tablets for working on Excel presentation or Excel spreadsheets, because there's certainly a lot of benefits to working in the desktop experience. However, most of the functionality that the majority of users who use Excel desire is actually built right into the mobile application. So just because of screen real estate, I'm going to be doing most of the demo, most of the interactions on my iPad, because it should be easier for you to see, but this would apply to the iPhone as well. I can quickly resize just by pinching to zoom, and it really helps to get a better view of what I'm looking at, especially if I'm using a smaller screen. And I'd like you to note that there's two cells that are highlighted here. Now on the iPad, the cell D17 is highlighted in green, and it's got two green dots. That shows that that's the cell that I am working in. So I can go ahead and type something, right? And you can see that text appear in that cell. On the other hand, on the iPhone, you see that same green box with the green dots in column in cell B21. However, on both screens, you can see that there's something in somebody is working in both of those cells. What this is called co-authoring. We've got a great experience in the Word and the PowerPoint apps as well. But co-authoring within the mobile lets users know when someone else is in the application and what cell they're working on. This is just going to eliminate duplicates, eliminate people from stepping on each other's toes. Now, what is really cool is that we can actually be in different pages at the same time. We can be completely different portions of the spreadsheet, working on our own portions, completely irrespective of the other person, and no one would ever really know, because we're just doing our work on our own. So
yeah, Connor, this is a good point. So previously, you could only accomplish this if all of the authors of this spreadsheet were in a browser. So now what you're seeing is how we've taken a lot of the investments that we've made in the co-authoring capabilities, and we've now put them on your native desktop apps. We've announced that it may be out now with Mac, but if it's not, it's right around the corner. And then you see what we're showing off here. I did it last week in Word. You're seeing it in Excel. So the idea is to have zero disruption when you're co-authoring or collaborating with people on Office files across any platform.
Awesome. Yeah. So as you can see, I actually just typed in some things on each of the devices, and you can see that I was typing in both at the same time, and it was really cool. Now, if I want to invite somebody else to this to work with me, I can come in here. I can come to invite people. I can type in. I'll type in. Oop, I didn't select it. Apologies. I'm going to come into invite people. I'm going to select here, and I'll type in my colleague Brent Witchell. Actually, I might have to type in his email address. el@microsoft.com, and I'm going to send that to him. And now Brent just got an email from me saying that Connor shared this file with you, and so he can get in there and edit as he would like. And so while that's still in the process of going out, I can come in here and I can see a couple of people have access to this. And let's say I want to remove access, so my colleague Nate doesn't need access to this anymore, so I'm just going to simply remove access. And that's going to, even if he had this file in his OneDrive for Business, he's no longer going to have access to that. And then briefly, just wanted to draw your attention to some of the formatting and some of the capabilities that we have in this experience. So up along the top, if you're looking at the iPad, we have a row of options. So we've got Home, Insert, Draw, Formulas, Data, Review, and View. These are consistent with the desktop experience if you're an Excel user. And so a couple of things that I can do. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to highlight these cells because I want to bold those. I might want to come over here and I might want to change these, maybe font sizes, and so I'll go up a couple of font sizes on those. That looks to be just about good. And then Ann Wallace is the president of this organization, and so she's a pretty important person. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to insert a comment there, and I'm going to let everyone know that this is a really important person. And so I'm going to go ahead and do that. You'll see that there's a little red arrow next to Ann Wallace, and that'll show up on my iPad very briefly. And my colleague Brent is also in here, and he's taking the initiative to make some edits as well, highlighting Garth and Dennis. And so this is just a great experience, or a great example for you of how we're able to work in the same document together at the same time. We're able to interact with this file much the same way we would in a desktop. And we have some pretty cool capabilities with touch-enabled devices as well. I can put in question marks, and I can even write, should this be here? If you have a digitized pen, this makes it a little bit easier, but be here. Right, and so do we need the social security numbers in this Excel file? Perhaps, perhaps not. But as you can see, those drawings came over on my iPhone as well. I can go ahead and I can erase those, right? And so it's just great to be able to interact with it in that way. I can also insert a photo if I would like. The thing that I love is, my phone died, or phone went to sleep, and so there we go. I'm going to pop that back open. Under the formula section, now I don't have every Excel formula memorized. There's no way that I could. And so the great thing that I love about this is it actually tabulates a lot of them into categories. And I can come in here to recent, or let's say I'm looking at for a financial formula. I can come in here and I can see some of these. I can click on the little eye and I can get information as to what that formula is, which is really great. We also have logical. There's quite a few. There's some engineering formulas as well. So all of this is to say that if duty does call and it's an inconvenient time where you might not be able to sit down in front of your desktop or your laptop to be able to work with an Excel document, Microsoft is committed to helping you guys, again, do your best work wherever your best work gets done. And I believe that the OneDrive for Business app, as well as the Excel mobile app, are a great way to be able to do that. So Brent, back to you.
Yeah, so thanks, Connor. Great demo. I know we flew by the seat of our pants. Listen, one of the things that customers tell us over and over and over is, as soon as they put their files in OneDrive for Business or in SharePoint Online, it opens up a full gamut of new experiences so that they can access their files from anywhere at any time on any device, as Connor showed. And there's something as simple as the recent files that follow you. So if you open up your Word native app on your Mac or your PC and you author a document or you work with someone, as soon as you get home, someone says, hey, I need you to quickly edit something, you can do all of that from your mobile, and you don't have to search for where that file is. You just go and it's going to show up right up in your recent files. Don't forget to visit TryThisAtWork to see this episode in a few days. It'll probably be posted as well as every other episode that we've conducted at TryThisAtWork. We appreciate your time. We hope this was valuable to you. We hope you learned something. Thanks, take care, and goodbye for now.